Blockminers is a cooperative deck building board game. You play as a group of hackers in a cyberpunk future, and your goal is to infiltrate the bank, CapitAll. If you run out of money to pay rent, you lose the game. This is a tutorial on how to play Blockminers inside Tabletop Simulator. The game is free to play and the workshop link is in the description. When you first load into the game, it will look like this. You have the rulebook in the bottom left corner, and then you have a power button to start the board. When the boot up sequence is completed, you will be presented with the different versions of the game to play and what difficulty setting you would like to play. 1.1 is the published version of the game, and 1.2 is the beta, where everything is subject to change. The default game mode is normal, which is how the game is described in the rulebook. Easy is a common house ruling to make the game ramp up more slowly, which is good for the first time you're playing the game. And hard is for players looking for a challenge where the game will ramp up considerably faster. As mentioned, if it is your first time playing the game, I would recommend playing on easy mode. After you have selected start, the relevant setup will be performed for you, and after this point, make sure to seat all of the players, because once perform setup is clicked, every character that does not have a seated player will have their cards deleted. The scripted setup essentially encodes this part of the rulebook, and when that is done, if you want to read the rulebook instead, continue from this page. This is the basement game board. This is where you keep track of your shared funds, both your money and your blocks, and the current rent. Rent can only be paid in money, although blocks can be turned into money. Next to it we have the CapitAll game board. This is where players keep track of their infiltration level with their corresponding game piece. When a player is promoted, they move up an infiltration level, and when they are demoted, they move down an infiltration level. Once a player promotes to CEO, you win immediately. The CapitAll game board infiltration levels have different abilities. These are cumulative, meaning if you are a manager, you have the abilities of jail, unemployed, employed, and manager. So for example, if a player is in jail, they can only draw office cards. If they are, however, unemployed, they can draw office cards and they can draw basement cards. And then over here, we have the dark web. The dark web consists of both office cards and basement cards. This is a deck that you deck build from. You will be able to add these cards into your deck. On the other side, we have the encounter deck. Encounter cards represent unwanted attention as a result of performing illegal activities. Almost all encounter cards have bad effects, but there is often a way to play them to negate or at least reduce their effects. Next to the encounter deck is the encounter card archive, and next to the dark web deck is the dark web archive. When the dark web deck is empty, the dark web archive will be shuffled and turned around to form a new dark web to draw cards from. Each player has two starting decks, their office deck and their basement deck. These starting decks are the exact same for all players. The only difference between the players are the stats of the characters. A high voice means that the character is very charismatic and cool. A high mind means the character is very knowledgeable and intelligent. And a high will means that the character is very driven. Voice is used when infiltrating and to escape some encounter cards. Mind is used when installing viruses and for some encounter cards. And will determines the number of cards you draw at the start of the day. When you are ready to start playing the game, you click the Start the Game button. The start of day phase is now scripted, where everyone draws an encounter card and then players go around the table to decide should they draw from the basement deck today or should they draw from the office deck today. This passes around the table, going from the player who has the go first token, and once everyone has drawn their cards, it is now time for the workday, where cards are played. During the workday phase, players take turns to play cards until all cards are played. Once all cards are played, players pay rent and then the next day begins. This continues until either you can't pay rent or someone becomes the CEO. The cards themselves are not scripted, so the effects of the cards you will resolve yourself. Some cards have very straightforward effects, such as bare minimum work. If red would play this card, they would simply add 1 money. Other cards can have multiple effects, such as block reward. If yellow plays this card, they get to add 2 blocks, but they must also draw 1 encounter card. The most common way a player gets promoted is by infiltrating. When infiltrating, a player attempts to check 1 level above their current infiltration level. What is a check? A check means roll 2 dice. If it is a voice check, you add your voice stat, and if it is a mind check, you add your mind stat. Nivek currently has their game piece on employed, and looking at the CapitAll game board, the next level is manager. To To get to manager, a voice 10 check is required. Nivek rolled 6, it is a voice check, so he adds his voice, which is 5. That is 11, which is 10 or higher, which means that Nivek successfully promoted. As an effect of playing infiltrate, Nivek must also draw an encounter card. Some cards use the word or. At this point, players must choose one of the options before proceeding. When playing this, players must either draw one encounter card or remove one block. Then they get to browse the dark web. To browse the dark web, you can use the browse macro available in the game. This shows you which cards that you can pick from. If you select which card you want and click pick, it will be added to your correct deck and the rest will go in the dark web archives. Cards resolve top to bottom in Blockminers. However, if there is a paragraph that cannot happen, for example, if -1 block is selected when there are no blocks, the card crashes and stops resolving. So for example, if there would have been no blocks now and Satoru selected -1 block, -1 block is not possible because there are no blocks, then the card crashes and the next paragraph, browse the dark web, does not happen. Paragraphs are marked by semicolons. Similarly, this encounter card, which has the text -1 block, you are demoted, would currently crash on -1 block as there are no blocks, and the you are demoted text would not come into effect. That is one way to avoid encounter cards. Another one is the encounter cards that have a check in the top left, like phone call for example, which has a voice 12 check. Unfortunately for Satoru only has one voice and would have to roll 11 or higher to escape this encounter card. Satoru rolled a 6, plus his voice at 1 is 7, that is not 12 or higher, so the encounter card comes into effect. But luckily for Satoru, there are currently not any blocks, so the card crashes on -1 block and Satoru is not demoted. Another way to avoid encounter cards is if the encounter cards have a threat level. You are demoted to jail is pretty rough. However, it says threat 5 at the top. That means that this encounter card only happens if, when it is played, there are 5 or more other encounter cards in play. The turn continually passes around the table until all players have played their cards. All cards must be played, including encounter cards. The only exception is if a player is holding no encounter cards, in which case they can say, I fold, and put all their cards face down, meaning they have no effect. When all the cards are played, cleanup is automated for you. You can simply click End Workday to put all the cards where they are supposed to be. You can then click Pay Rent to remove money from the money area equal to the rent. And after that, you can click Start the next day. This is the way the game continues until either you cannot pay rent or until a player becomes the CEO. From page 17 on the rulebook and onwards, all the keywords are listed in alphabetical order. If you have questions about, for example, if I do this, does the card crash? If it says distract, do I have to distract cards? Etc. At the end, viruses are also clarified that if you play a virus card, you must complete the mind check in the top left corner. If you do so, the virus is permanently installed and gives a bonus to all players. If the check fails, the card goes back into your discard pile and you get to try again another day. That's how to play Blockminers and Tabletop Simulator. If you want to find people to play with, then you can come join our Discord server. If you want to support us, then you can leave a rating on the game on Board Game Geek. Links for that are in the description. Hope to see you on the Discord server and have a great rest of the week.